For a video game, Night in the Woods is quite unique in its approach when tackling issues surrounding mental health. In the game, the recurring motif of mental illness through the main character Mae not only add to the narrative and development of characters, but also feel extremely authentic and relatable to me and many other players who have played the game. In this video, we'll explore and celebrate how Night in the Woods is able to accurately depict mental illness in a way that doesn't stigmatize or belittle the experiences of its characters. Before getting into it, here's a light spoiler warning. This game is amazing and I highly recommend playing it and avoiding being spoiled before watching this video. I for one wish I could experience this game again for the first time. In Night in the Woods, you play as Mae, a 20-year-old girl who has just dropped out of college and has now returned to her hometown, Possum Springs, for the first time in 2 years. We join her as she moves back in with her parents, reconnects with old friends Greg, Bee, Angus and Germ, and discovers a secret cult that's making human/anthropomorphic animal sacrifices within the town. But just disregard that last bit for now. That's not what we're here to talk about. What's most striking to me is how the game portrays Mae's implied mood disorder. Her anger, anxiety, dissociation, derealization, and depression are all faced by her, and by extension the player, on a daily basis. Mae is very much an imperfect character. When we first meet her, she's moving back in with her parents who saved their money so that Mae could be the first in their family to go to college, yet she's dropped out. We also learn that there was an unfortunate incident involving her that took place 6 years prior to her moving back. The specifics of the event are foreshadowed and revealed later, but in case you forgot, Mae beat up someone named Andy Cullen really badly with a baseball bat in front of the entire town. This took place during a dissociative episode at a softball game. She was sent to therapy for her anger management issues and earned a very bad reputation in town, being nicknamed Killer, a name she never quite shook among the locals. Mae has a lot of anger and insecurity, and as a player it can sometimes be frustrating being with her. We want to feel like we have control, but often we're stuck in situations where we have little choice over what Mae says and does. The first clear example of this is the night of the state park party. Not only do we get a glimpse of Mae's lack of self-worth as she judges herself in the mirror, later we are unable to control whether or not Mae drinks and makes a fool of herself, which leads to the drunken ride home with Bee. Despite our dialogue options being sincere, what Mae actually says is far from it and further strains our relationship with Bee, who we're trying to reconnect with. But this lack of control isn't a fault of the game, because we're feeling exactly like Mae does. Sometimes in life we do or say stupid things. We can't help how we feel, and we can't instantly break old habits. And for Mae, her often self-destructive patterns are as much out of her control as they are ours. It feels true to life. Mae feels like she's going backwards because she's not in the place, both mentally and physically, that everyone else expects her to be. This notion is even literally manifested through the game, as to explore and progress, Mae has to travel to the left, backwards, rather than to the right, like just about every other side-scrolling game. Her friends are growing up and she feels like she's falling behind, despite being the only one who is able to get out of Possum Springs and start somewhere new. I think Bee summed it up well when she stated, "I stayed here and got older while you went off and stayed the same." Because despite being awarded opportunities that many of those around her wanted but didn't have, Mae still struggled to move on beyond Possum Springs and function normally at college. For Mae, Possum Springs is her safety blanket, a place she's retreated to in an attempt to regain the meaning in her life that her dissociative state has taken from her. And as a direct parallel to this, Possum Springs is also trying once again to find meaning after its mining industry, which gave the town prosperity, was ended, leaving the town broke and run down, with businesses shutting their doors left and right, and citizens struggling to find and maintain jobs. Thus the emergence of the cult. I think Night in the Woods is like an anti-coming-of-age tale, because the coming-of-age games, TV shows, movies, and books that we consume ingrain this idea within us that growing up means entering our prime, functioning well, and leaving our childhood behind. But that's not always the case. Sometimes we don't just come of age. Sometimes we get a little stuck, like Mae. Towards the end of the game, in what I think is one of the best scenes, not just in Night in the Woods, but in just about any game I've played, Mae describes her dissociative episode and what led up to the day she beat up Andy with a baseball bat. Mae felt attached to characters in a video game, and realizing that they were just code, just pixels and lines written and programmed by someone else, triggered this existential crisis within her, and the feelings, as she described, began to dump out of the screen and into real life. The tree outside her window, which she had an emotional attachment to, she now saw as just a thing that was there, just growing and eating and being there. She continues, "All the stuff I felt about the tree was just in my head. And for Mae, all the people she saw walking by were now just shapes. Reality broke. Everything was just stuff in the universe that she felt no connection to, and the fear and anger overpowered her to the point that she just snapped when she saw Andy. She felt so disconnected from the world that this violent beating and Andy's blood looked like just shapes, red shapes all over the grass." It's interesting to note that as we empathise more and more with her, we actually become more and more like her. Because believe it or not, Mae is just a bunch of pixels on a screen. She is the exact thing that she describes as triggering this episode. I think it's such an impactful way to portray her dissociation from reality, because as we empathise, we become more invested in her, until what she's telling us about almost feels like a shared experience. It's a really powerful way to convey a message, and as the player, having this revelation so late into the game puts so much into perspective regarding Mae's behaviour and her hardships at college. It's the type of thing that allows you to play through the game a second time with a whole new outlook and understanding of her situation. Night in the Woods' tagline was, "At the end of everything, hold on to anything." But what is Mae's anything? What is she holding on to? For too long, she's been holding on to the past. She's been consumed by these shapes and felt the only way to escape them was to return home, where she figured everything is fine. It's familiar. It's safe. But her past was still holding her back. However, when it seems like she really might be confronting the end of everything, it's through facing these feelings and holding on to her friends, those that matter most to her, that she is able to have a real breakthrough. She admits that she is something, and that it's pretty amazing to be something at least. I think this moment is so important because Mae doesn't just overcome and move on from everything she's dealing with. That's not how real mental illness works. Instead, she stops trying to run from these thoughts. She starts embracing these feelings, especially the ones that are scary, the ones that hurt, because that means she is something. She's not just shapes. The world isn't just shapes, even if it looks that way sometimes.